I try and balance everything as much as I can while really expanding on the spectrum of flavor, like just trying to reach all the ends there are of flavor. Does that even make sense? So I'm Corentin, and I make traditionally inspired contemporary pastry. Growing up in France, I think the culture there taught me to respect tradition, and we learnt a lot about history and the hundreds and hundreds of years of different struggles and victories that France has had, and that quickly taught me about the importance of history and how it brings on tradition. My French grandmother, she would wake us up at 6 or 7 in the morning, and we'd have breakfast with her at the kitchen bench, and she'd already be rolling like tart doughs out for dinner, 12 hours in advance. And so watching her put in all that effort into food really taught me to respect what you're doing and to appreciate the process and to put the time that it deserves into it. We lived in quite a small village, and the bakery was a truck that would come to your window, and you would jump out of your window, first floor window, you'd jump out of the window, and I remember Mum giving me change, and we would buy croissants, pain au chocolat, baguettes, and then we would go home and have breakfast, and that was all before work. So I learnt that coming here and buying croissants from New World wasn't the same experience, and eating them wasn't the same experience, and so there was a disruption that I tried to correct and brought into my food routine. Starting butter, I knew that I wanted to bring some of France's more traditional pastry in a modern way, and I think the best vehicle for that was tarts. There's a crispy pastry, there's a creamy filling, there's some toppings and some garnishes that all add flavour, and I think the layers are really important in the food that I'm making. One of my favourite pastries is a lemon meringue. There's so much to it and there's so little to it. The base is the foundation of your tart. So I like to stick to a crumbly pastry, but I make it a little bit thicker so that it keeps its texture, because that's quite important. It also has to hold its filling. So once you make your dough, it's important to let that rest so that the gluten relaxes, and once it's rested, it's important to roll it out to an even consistency and to let that rest. And then I cut out the shapes and I mold the tart, and then I let that rest. And once that's all rested, you can finally bake it, probably 2 or 3 days into the process. And baking it evenly is important, obviously, because it shrinks, and so you can get an oval-sized tart if you don't rotate your tray. I've learnt a lot of those little tips along the way after making about 100 pastry bases. The only way to learn something the right way is to do it as many times as you possibly can. The worst mistake I made making those tart bases was to rush the process. The butter melted and I overworked the pastry, and the pastry got tough and the sides collapsed, and so now it takes me about 2 or 3 days to make a pastry base, and slowing down that process has really made what I think is now an almost perfect pastry base. The praline's another perfect example of the contrast of flavors and textures all in one go. I just get really excited when one thing is many things. And so the hazelnuts I toast to get even more earthiness out of. I keep the skins on, again, to get the real flavor of hazelnut in there. And we add a little bit of salt, just adding to that savory, earthy flavor. That is balanced out by the caramel, which is a caramel that is hard and crispy until you blend it and the sugar really liquefies. And so it's got sugar crystals, it's got hazelnut skins, it's got texture in it, but it's one of the softer elements in the tarts. The lemon curd brings acidity to the tart, which I think is really important. I think one of the things that I miss in any dish that I'm being critical about is acidity. And so this was a good chance to put as much lemon as I could in there, zest included. So we make a curd simply by mixing eggs, sugar and lemon juice and pour that over some butter. And I use a stick blender to emulsify the mix together so that you get that creaminess, that softness and that single texture throughout the component. And the meringue is, I think it's straightforward. I make an Italian meringue, it's just more stable and more reliable and you get a really nice shiny creamy texture out of it. Double sugar to egg whites. And I don't know what else to say about that. I don't know what else to say about meringue. I worked in hospitality as a kid and I grew to really actually enjoying working in a cafe. I was a good barista and I was actually quite good at running the cafe at quite a young age and really enjoyed the hospitality life, but I was certain that I couldn't make a living off it, and so I went into some of my other hobbies which were still creative but more commercially viable. So I pursued photography and graphic design. I remember being at work and a little bit bored out of my mind, and I actually was watching the first episode ever of Chef's Table, and I was supposed to be working but I was watching the episode on my phone, which, I don't know, don't tell my boss, but it doesn't matter. So I did what I thought was right and I told the boss I was leaving. I told her I was wasting her time. I was watching, I fully confessed. I was like, look, I'm reading recipes all day. I'm not doing the best I can be doing and I'm more passionate about this, so I'm going to move. My first week back into hospitality was rough. I loved the work I was doing, but I wasn't used to being on my feet for 40 hours a week. And I did have some moments where I thought, hey, am I built for the industry? Like, is this something I actually not only want to do, but can do?
Like maybe it's pace at the very beginning, but that's always like that with younger chefs because they don't know the pace at which you work in a commercial kitchen. But you know, you pick that up, everyone learns how to do that, everyone learns the pace of a kitchen.
Alex's outlook on food is really different to anything that I'd seen before in terms of prioritizing producers and produce and flavor rather than just making the most complicated, elaborate dish that you can do, which is what I thought fine dining was all about. one of the people that really did encourage me was Alex, because I learnt that you could make your passions work even in hospitality, which was previously a complete dream, and I didn't know if I would realise that dream. So I just decided to go all out.
I was very, very excited for him. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I was stoked, I was glad. Christchurch needs more people that are independent, doing exciting and innovative things, so to hear that he was doing that, it was just like, I was buzzing for him. It's awesome. It's awesome for him, but it's also awesome for the city. That someone who's as capable as he is, firstly is staying here, and then secondly is doing something independently. I think that was, that's vital to a city, is people like that being here, and so that was great. I was very, very happy.
What keeps me going is that I am doing something I didn't think I'd be doing for another 10 or 15 years. If you want to look at it this way, I'm the only person I can blame for anything that happens, and it's actually really freeing. It's really freeing to make a mistake and go, oh, I made a mistake, I'll just fix it, because no one else is going to do that for me. And so that has been something that has freed me up a lot and has given me the chance to experiment and do things that are different, and if I make a mistake, I'm the one who can fix it.